Everyone dreams about retiring early. Imagine walking away from work at 55. No more boss, no more clocking in, just freedom. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. The system wasn't designed for that. Social Security doesn't just hand you a paycheck the moment you stop working. In fact, if you quit too soon, you could end up with less money than you think, bigger gaps to cover, and a few nasty surprises along the way. Retiring at 55 can be done, but only if you understand the hidden costs, the rules they don't put on the brochure, and the strategies that make it work. Let's break it down, because if you get this wrong, your dream retirement could turn into a financial nightmare. When people talk about retiring early, they often picture endless holidays, freedom from stress, and more time for themselves. But the reality is, if you decide to retire at 55, you're stepping away from the system too soon. And that decision has a direct impact on how much Social Security you'll ever receive. Social Security isn't some magic pot of money. It's calculated based on how much you've earned, how long you've worked, and the top 35 years of your career. If you don't work for 35 years, guess what happens? The system fills those missing years with zeros, and zeros drag your average down. That means smaller monthly checks for the rest of your life. Think about it this way. Social Security is like a scorecard that takes your 35 highest earning years, adds them up, and then spits out your benefit. If you retire at 55, you're cutting out years that could have been some of your highest earning ones, especially if your income is still growing in your 50s. Many people hit their peak career earnings between 50 and 60, so walking away at 55 means leaving those high-paying years on the table. That's like running a marathon and sitting down a mile before the finish line. You miss out on the best results. On top of that, you can't even touch Social Security until you're 62 at the absolute earliest. That's 7 years of waiting after you've quit working, with no new contributions going into the system. Even then, if you claim at 62, your check is permanently reduced for life compared to waiting until full retirement age, which is around 67 for most people today. For example, if your full retirement benefit was $2.00 a month, claiming at 62 might drop it down to around $400. And once you've locked that in, it never goes back up. Imagine working all your life only to cut 30% off your retirement income because you got out of the game too soon. It's also worth considering that life expectancy plays a role. People are living longer, and Social Security is designed to stretch your benefits across decades. Retiring at 55 means you might have to fund 30 to 40 years of living without a paycheck. If you're relying heavily on Social Security, that gap can get ugly fast. That's why retiring early without fully understanding the math is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They think the system will cover them, when in reality, the system penalizes them for stepping away too soon. The harsh truth is, Social Security rewards patience and punishes impatience. If you keep working past 55, not only do you avoid those zeros, but you also replace earlier, lower earning years with higher ones. Every additional year of earnings in your 50s can make your retirement check noticeably larger. It's like giving yourself a raise in retirement before you even get there. Cutting that short means locking yourself into less, and once it's locked, there's no going back. Let's put it into perspective with an example. Imagine two people, both with solid careers. One retires at 55 while the other works until 65. The one who retired early has 10 fewer years of contributions, probably more zeros in their record, and loses out on higher late career earnings. The other not only adds more to their record, but also allows their benefit to grow by delaying claiming. At the end of the day, the second person could be looking at hundreds of dollars more every month, sometimes even over 1,000 more. Multiply that by 20 or 30 years of retirement, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars left on the table. That's the price of quitting too early. So yes, retiring at 55 sounds attractive, but when it comes to Social Security, it shrinks your benefits in more ways than one. You lose years of earnings, you shorten your contribution history, and you potentially force yourself into claiming reduced benefits early. That's not financial freedom. That's financial strain waiting to happen. The lesson here is simple. If you want to retire early, don't expect Social Security to be your safety net. Plan as if it won't be there, because retiring at 55 guarantees you'll get less out of it, and for the rest of your life. Less is all you'll have. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about Social Security is thinking it will magically appear the moment they stop working. Retiring at 55 doesn't mean you can start collecting benefits right away. In fact, you won't even be eligible to claim anything until you're at least 62, and even then, you'll be locking yourself into a permanently reduced benefit. That leaves a 7-year gap where you're responsible for covering every single expense without help from Social Security. The 48. Imagine living 7 years without a paycheck and without the safety net you thought would be there. It's not just a bump in the road, it's a massive financial hole. What happens during those 7 years is critical. You'll be dipping into your savings, retirement accounts, or investments to survive. If you haven't built a large enough financial cushion, those withdrawals can destroy your long-term stability. For example, pulling from a 4-to-1 or IRA before age 59 not only reduces your future nest egg, but in many cases, you'll get slapped with a 10% early withdrawal penalty plus taxes. That means money you thought would last into your 70s or 80s could vanish in your 50s. Retiring early doesn't just affect your Social Security check, it forces you to cannibalize your other resources too soon. Even if you manage to scrape by until 62, claiming benefits at the earliest age locks you into smaller payments for the rest of your life. Full retirement age is around 67 for most people today, which means you're claiming 5 years early. That could reduce your monthly check by about 25–30%. Let's put some numbers to it. If your full retirement age benefit is $2,000, claiming at 62 could bring it down to about $400. That's $600 less every month. Over a year, that's $7,200 gone. Over 20 years of retirement, that's $144,000 you'll never see. And if you live into your 80s or 90s, the gap only gets worse. By leaving work too soon, you've essentially chosen to earn less for the rest of your life. Now think about inflation. Social Security has cost of living adjustments, but those adjustments are based on your benefit amount. A smaller benefit means smaller increases year after year. So not only are you starting from a lower number, but your raises in retirement will also be smaller. That compounds over time, making it even harder to keep up with rising prices on groceries, gas, healthcare, and everything else. Retiring at 55 doesn't just cut your check once, it reduces your financial growth every single year afterward. And here's another layer people often ignore: healthcare. Medicare doesn't kick in until 65. If you retire at 55, you have a full decade to cover your own health insurance, and that's one of the biggest expenses retirees face. Premiums in the private market can cost thousands per year, and as you age, your medical needs only grow. Without a job providing coverage and without Medicare to rely on, that decade becomes an expensive burden. Many early retirees burn through their savings just trying to stay insured, leaving little left for the lifestyle they dreamed about. So the harsh reality is this: retiring at 55 doesn't just mean you stop working, it means you take on 7 years of financial responsibility without the system backing you up. It means dipping into your savings earlier, potentially paying penalties, missing out on some of your highest earning work years. And then finally, 48, when Social Security does become available, you're stuck with a reduced benefit forever. 8, it's like running into a wall at full speed and then realizing the consequences don't fade. They stick with you for the rest of your retirement. The truth is, Social Security was never designed to fund an early retirement. It was built to supplement income for people who worked long careers and retired closer to their 60s or 70s. Retiring at 55 shifts all the pressure onto you. You become responsible for every dollar you'll need. And if you're not prepared with massive savings or other reliable income streams, the dream of early retirement turns into a financial trap. The system won't bend for you. It will simply give you less, and for life. Another major factor to think about when considering retirement at 55 is how your decision impacts your lifetime Social Security earnings record. Social Security isn't based on the last job you had or just a handful of years. It's calculated using your highest 35 years of earnings adjusted for inflation. If you retire at 55, there's a good chance you won't have a full 35 years of income on your record, or you'll be missing out on what could have been your highest earning years. This matters because any year with no earnings is counted as a zero, and those zeros drag down the overall average, which ultimately reduces your benefit. Think about it like a grade point average. If you take 35 tests and score well on most of them, but the last 10 you just leave blank, those zeros pull down your GPA. Even if you had some amazing grades earlier, the missing scores lower your average. Social Security works the same way. Retiring too early means you're leaving blank spots in your record. 8. And those blank spots show up in your check every month. Many people don't realize this until it's too late, when they see their benefit amount and wonder why it's smaller than they expected. Beyond the missing years, early retirement robs you of the opportunity to grow your earnings during what could be your peak career stage. For many workers, their 50s are the time when they finally start earning the highest salaries of their lives. Promotions, bonuses, and years of experience can translate into bigger paychecks. And those bigger paychecks directly impact how Social Security calculates your benefits. Walking away at 55 means you're cutting yourself off before you hit that peak. The money you might have earned in those years isn't just lost income, it's lost benefit potential that could have boosted your retirement security for decades. 8. And let's not forget the power of compounding in your retirement accounts. The longer you stay in the workforce, the longer your savings and investments have to grow. Even just 5 more years of working and contributing to a retirement plan can make a massive difference. For instance, if you had 300 zalons in savings at age 55 and left it to grow at a modest 6% annual return without touching it, by 60 it could grow to over 400 zalosen. That's 100,000 gained just by staying patient. Retiring early forces you not only to stop contributing, but also to start withdrawing, which flips the entire compounding process upside down. Instead of growing, your nest egg shrinks. This decision also affects spousal and survivor benefits. Social Security benefits aren't just about you. They can also extend to your spouse or even your children in some cases. A smaller earnings record means reduced spousal or survivor benefits. That means your decision to retire early doesn't just impact your check. It could directly lower the financial support your family would have in the event of your death. In a way, you're not only deciding for yourself, but also setting the financial tone for the people who may depend on your benefit. When you retire at 55, you're also likely underestimating your own longevity. People today live much longer than when Social Security was first created. 8. Retiring early means you could be looking at 30, even 40 years of retirement. That's a long time to stretch your money, and a long time for a reduced Social Security benefit to feel smaller and smaller compared to your actual needs. Every dollar you miss out on now becomes a bigger deal as the years go on because inflation, healthcare costs, and lifestyle changes don't slow down just because your income does. So the impact of retiring at 55 on your Social Security isn't just about timing. It's about the entire financial foundation you've been building over decades. It cuts short your highest earning years, inserts zeros into your record, lowers your average, reduces spousal benefits, the 48, and shrinks what could have been your safety net for life. It's not just a financial setback. It's a long-term sacrifice that many don't fully calculate until they're already living it. The truth is, Every year you work in your late 50s not only adds income for the moment, but strengthens your social security benefit for the future. Walking away early pulls the rug out from under that structure, leaving you with a smaller, weaker foundation for the rest of your retirement years. One of the biggest challenges people face when they talk about retiring at 55 is bridging the gap between that age and the time when Social Security benefits officially become available. You can't claim Social Security until you're at least 62, and even then, taking it at the earliest possible age permanently reduces your benefits. That means if you stop working at 55, you could be staring down at least 7 full years with no Social Security income. During that time, your only sources of money will be savings, investments, or possibly part-time work if you choose to do it. For many, this gap period becomes the most dangerous financial stretch of their lives because it forces them to rely entirely on their personal resources long before they plan to. Think about what that really means. If you've saved, say, 400 Zarozen by 55 and you need 40 Zarozen a year to cover your expenses, that money will last you 10 years if you use it aggressively to cover your needs before Social Security kicks in. By the time you're eligible, you may already have burned through the bulk of your retirement savings, leaving far less to support you in your later years. This early drawdown not only reduces your principal, but also kills the compounding potential that could have made those investments grow significantly over the next decade. Retiring at 55 doesn't just use up your savings, it accelerates the timeline in which your money has to perform. Healthcare is another massive piece of this puzzle. Medicare doesn't begin until age 65. That means if you retire at 55, to 48, you're facing a full 10 years of figuring out how to cover medical costs without the safety net of government support. Health insurance on the open market can be brutally expensive, especially as you get older, and the costs tend to rise each year. If you've ever seen a retirement plan get eaten alive by medical bills, you'll understand why this gap is one of the most overlooked and dangerous parts of retiring early. A single surgery, hospital stay, or chronic condition could wipe out years of careful planning. Unless you've built a very detailed and realistic healthcare strategy into your early retirement, this one factor alone can derail your plans faster than anything else. There's also the psychological side of this equation. Many people underestimate how long 7 to 10 years without a stable income stream really feels. It's not just a financial gap, it's an emotional one. You're watching your savings decline every month without the reassurance of money flowing in. Even if you've saved well, the constant pressure of living off withdrawals can create stress and anxiety that weigh heavily on your mental health. And when you finally reach the age of claiming Social Security, the reduced benefits may not even feel like enough to relieve that pressure. The reality is early retirement often looks more glamorous in theory than it does in practice when you're actually the one pulling money from your account month after month, hoping it lasts. Another trap many fall into during this gap is lifestyle inflation carried over from their working years. People who earned well in their careers and built certain habits, travel, dining, hobbies, home upgrades, find it hard to suddenly cut back. But without Social Security to supplement, the gap years demand discipline and often sacrifice. Those who don't adjust quickly enough end up burning through far more than planned, leaving very little cushion for the decades still ahead of them. This is where many early retirees find themselves forced back into the workforce, not because they want to, but because they ran out of choices. And finally, it's important to consider the unpredictability of life itself. Inflation can eat into your spending power during those gap years. Investment markets can take unexpected downturns, reducing the value of your nest egg just when you need it most. Emergencies, family responsibilities, or even simple lifestyle changes can all pile on. Without Social Security as a stabilizer, you're left more vulnerable to these risks than someone who stays in the workforce a bit longer. Bridging the gap from 55 to when Social Security kicks in is not impossible, but it demands an extraordinary level of preparation, discipline, and foresight. You need a robust savings plan, a clear healthcare strategy, and the mental toughness to weather years of withdrawals without guaranteed income. For most people, this gap proves to be the hardest part of retiring early, not because they didn't dream big, but because the reality of surviving without that steady Social Security lifeline for nearly a decade is tougher than they ever imagined.